Hi guys! In today's video, we're comparing 8 Nintendo Switch games and their technical specs. Let's start with the native resolutions of said titles in the docked configuration. As you can see, the games with the highest native rendering resolutions are The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Astral Chain, and Pokémon Sword and Shield. Moving on to texture quality, here we will compare the texture resolution and texture depth elevation of said games. As you can see, the more demanding titles like Doom Eternal and The Witcher 3 sacrifice texture detail to preserve the overall look of the original ports. In this case, the game with the clearest textures is by far Monster Hunter Rise. Now we're going to compare the quality of the shadows in our selection of games. As you can see, most games sacrifice shadow resolution on Nintendo Switch due to GPU limitations. When talking about shadow quality, most Nintendo Switch titles have similar shadow resolution and diffusion. For a notable example of very low shadow resolution, look no further than Astral Chain's character shadows. You can clearly see the pixelation steps on a big screen. Time to compare the reflections in our games. As you can see, The Witcher 3 and Hellblade have by far the clearest and highest resolution reflections of the bunch. Some notable worst offenders are Astral Chain and Doom Eternal in this area. The first game sacrifices effects resolution for higher rendering resolution, and the second one reduces reflection resolution according to the rendering resolution of the game, which in Doom Eternal adjusts dynamically according to GPU load. Turning on to texture filtering now, the games with the highest quality texture filtering are Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Monster Hunter Rise. Some notable mentions for very low texture filtering are The Witcher 3 and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. We're getting closer to the end of our comparison. Time to talk about the most important thing for me in a game's technical specifications, the frame rate of a title. As you can see, we're seeing frame drops in most of the titles featured in this comparison, and this is due to the Nintendo Switch's GPU memory configuration. There are some rare exceptions where the CPU bottlenecks some games instead of the GPU. The worst offenders in this area are The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Astral Chain. The first game drops frames in quite a few areas, especially when using the Silica Slate camera, and the second one drops frames when heavy action starts to drop in some levels. The drops in Astral Chain happen due to CPU limitations, since overclocking the CPU of the Switch almost eliminates them. The ones in Breath of the Wild happen due to bad optimization, since the title was a launch title for the system. Some games with surprisingly good frame rates are Monster Hunter Rise and Doom Eternal, which have minor frame drops and mostly run at 30 frames per second, while featuring top-tier visuals for the system. Finally, we're going to talk about sound quality. Here, we're comparing the compression algorithms used in each game audio's files and how this affects the treble extension each game's audio has. As you can see, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Astral Chain has the least compressed sounds compared to the other games, with files playing up to 22 kHz in the extreme top end of the frequency spectrum. The games with the highest compression in their audio files are The Witcher 3, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Monster Hunter Rise, although that one could be a deliberate choice to put the soundtrack behind the sound effects spatial depth-wise. As you have seen, most graphically demanding titles on the Nintendo Switch sacrifice performance or other graphical settings to achieve their design targets. I hope you enjoyed this video as we have enjoyed making it. Subscribe to our channel to see the portable version of this video and more technical analysis video on your favorite console titles. See ya!